Hi, Catherine here with Handmade by Circle Art Design. Well, look what I have made. This is a beaded embellished loom work bracelet, and I call it a Bead Soap Embellished. This is the first time that I had used my new Jewel Loom, and I did not record all of it, but I did record a little bit of the beginning, and I wanted to show it to you so that if you ever are concerned that you cannot do this, I had worked on a old craft loom that I had had for a long time, and I really love the length you get from the Jewel Loom, but there's a little bit of difference in it. So let's turn our eyes to our mat. And as we turn our eyes to the mat, we see the give thanks to the Lord. And I wanted to give thanks to the Lord that I had this to show you today. I've had several doctor's appointments this week and a bunch of things happening that I had to be at meetings and with other people, and things have just gotten real complicated. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get to show anything. But then I remembered that I had this walkthrough. It's really pictures. It shows you a little bit about how I learned to do the loom, but it's really a walkthrough of pictures of my first bracelet, and I am giving thanks to the Lord for this wonderful Jewel Loom. Now, they have a YouTube channel, and I highly recommend you go to their channel and watch some of their videos because it is awesome. But this was a blessing I had forgotten I had. So how about you? What do you want to give thanks for? All right, let's look at this loom. Now the loom comes in a box. It's the Jewel Loom. And as I said, they do have a YouTube channel. And I had used the old black metal craft loom that I had had for a long time. But when you open up the box for this Jewel Loom, it has this wonderful little plastic bag in it, and it has these amazing instructions. And if you are used to using a craft loom, I highly recommend you do not skip the instructions. I had to start twice. One of the things that I noticed right there is that the loom actually ties off on that side. I was used to tying it off in the center on my old loom. Also, there is not as much room between the bottom and your string or your cord. So make sure you look at the instructions because it is really worth the watch or the read. So here, whenever you put your wires on, and you will know from the instructions, there is this little metal rod that you put in this, and it makes the loom shrink. And then once you get everything done according to the instructions they give you, then you take out that little rod and it tightens up your string, and I really love this. And this one, like my other one, also gives you the option of doing many different size beads. Now I am going to use Fireline with this. I have seen wildfire used with it. I've seen leather used with it, but I really like the Fireline. I've used it for years, and so that's what I used to thread my loom. Now again, when you do this, make sure you read the instructions ahead of time. If you're a new beginner, those instructions are amazing. If you've used a different type of loom over the years, those instructions are amazing because I tried to use the center as opposed to going from that guide cord and tying it off at the side and then wrapping from either side of the loom. So I really liked that. Now this box also comes with this wonderful beading needle. Oh, it is awesome. It will go the full length of the loom, and it is very sturdy, and it also has a At least mine did, and this is a new box that I have gotten. I had one that I had not used, and then I went and got me another one once I used it. Because now I have 3 looms I can have going all the time. But I could not make the fire line work with the threader, but it did go in the needle just fine. But if you were using a different type of thread, I don't think that it would have any problem. Now, whenever I finish loading this, the way that I tie my thread on is I tie 2 surgeon's knots onto the side of my first string. Now, when I say my first, I'm left-handed. I want to go from right to left because it's easier for me to thread my beads and I have more control with my left hand. So I would suggest whatever hand is dominant, that is the side you tie your cord on. And my surgeon knot, you make your circle and you go through the circle with the end of the cord twice. Ooh, I make it. There you go. And that, I'm leaving a long tail on this so I can weave it in later. Then this is where I thought, oh, I'll go ahead and I'll put this through there. And I didn't have any problem getting it through the needle necessarily. It was once I got the fire line on it, I couldn't get the fire line back through it. So I just took it off and I ended up going ahead and doing it myself. But see, it just goes on there fine. So if you're using regular thread, you want to worry about stretching. Make sure your cord isn't the type that is going to stretch out and make it too loose, because you do need, whether you're using the Jewel Loom or you're using a craft loom, or maybe you have one of those wonderful wood looms, you want to make sure that the thread will stay taut. Now see, whenever I got that thread through there, I could not pull it through. But if you're using something like Firefox, like Fireline, go ahead and it'll go right through the hole. And again, this is one of the best needles I have ever seen for a loom, and I was really happy to get it. I wish it had had a couple more in it. All right, so here is my bracelet. So here in this picture, I have finished the loom work and the embellishment. I really, really love the beauty of this, the loom work that comes off of this beautiful little blue loom. I just think it's gorgeous. And I do find it, once I got used to it, I find it easier to use than the craft loom that I have been using for many years. So why do I call this a bead soup? First of all, I took some of my seed beads that I had a little of this and a little of that, and I mixed them all together to make the loom part of the bracelet itself. And then I got out my little box, well, it's not a very little box anymore, of different beads that I have. I have a lot of glass beads. I have some lampwork beads in there, different shapes and sizes and colors. And I decided, what do I want to make with these? And which ones do I have at least 2 of? Because this piece, I wanted to make a mirror image bracelet, which means I will start in the center with my largest bead, and then I will bead down one side, tie off my cord or my thread, and then I will tie it back on the other side of the bead, and I will do a mirror image of that piece. So once I am finished with that, what I do is I make a selvage on either end of my bracelet. I put some Gorilla Glue on the selvage, and then I put my endings. But when I'm through with that, I want you to look at the back part of the bracelet. Now, on some of these bracelets that I have done in the past, I would bead this. I would sew this on to a band, either cloth or leather, usually leather, for the inside of the bracelet. And I would do that with a seed bead whip stitch or a picot, seed bead picot stitch. And once I've done that, I won't have to worry about the threads. But because on this one, I did not do that, and I don't do it on all of them, I take a little bit of my Gorilla Glue on my finger, and I very carefully rub it across all my thread. This gives a barrier between the seed bead, the thread, and my skin. And that's one way you can seal these up without having to put them on a back. Now, I'm just real proud of this little Bead Soap loom work bracelet. I think it is gorgeous. A lot of times we think we have to go out and buy special beads, but I'm telling you, this was a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I added some seed beads, I added some bugle beads, and I think this piece turned out lovely. I do have several bracelets up, both in September and maybe the 1st of October, that do this type with this particular loom. I also have a couple up on my other loom so that you could go through and really get an idea of what I do to make these bracelets. But like I said, this was the first one to do the Jewel Loom with, and I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing, and only after it was finished do I wish that I had recorded the whole thing. But isn't that lovely? So here is the finished piece. I'm sorry the camera is wiggling all over the place. I must have been holding it by hand, because by this point I said, ooh, I should have recorded this so they could see this, because this is just gorgeous. You will see in this the ribbon endings I use for my bracelet. Let's see here. Go down at that. Oh, you can see just there it is, the ribbon ending there. Now these endings have teeth in them, and that's why I do a selvage, and I also use the Gorilla Glue so the teeth have something to bite into without cutting the thread you have done your loom work on. But I just love this. I think there's some Jesse James in this. I think there is some things from Fire Mountain, from Wild Beads, and the seed beads I know are from Wild Beads. And then I have bugle beads that I have bought. I may have bought those from Potomac, but there's just all these little pieces that I just put in a jar, and then when I get ready to do something called Bead Soap, this is what I end up with. Now, isn't that lovely? I am so sorry I did not record this one for you, because it is just a beauty. But as I said, I have some up on the channel, and just look for Embellished Bracelets if you go to Handmade by Circle Art Designs on YouTube. Thank you again for joining me for this walkthrough. I'm glad I had some pictures at least to show you for this, and I really did want to show you the joy of this new loom. I really love it, and look at the beautiful things it could make. Look around, see if you have one of these that you could pick up. Look in your stash. What bead soup do you have? And I will see you next week. God bless you. God keep you safe. Catherine, Handmade by Circle Art Designs. God bless y'all. See you next week. Happy beading and have a great weekend.